What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Daninator channel. Yep, you see that correctly. The thumbnail and this engine hoist in the back of my truck, which I'm borrowing from a buddy. We're going to be pulling the motor out of the Silverado. It's about time. Project ZRS has taken a big step forward, and I'm looking forward to it. Join me, will you? All right, so we got to get this thing out of the back of the truck, and I've got my son here. He's going to help me. What's your name again?
Antonio.
Antonio. Aaron's going to help me. Two rednecks trying to unload an engine hoist. It's massive, by the way. This is an 8-ton. My friend that's let me borrow this said this puppy is heavy duty enough to pick up anything less than 8 tons. As you can probably tell, Aaron, this is pretty heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, keep going. Okay.
It's stuck.
Okay, then we'll just slowly. This is going to be the heavier part. Okay. Pretty good dap. All right, thank you, son.
You're welcome.
I spent most of my morning cleaning up the front part of my garage so I can fit this bad boy in here. All right, so with that taken care of, we can move towards getting that Silverado out of that spot and over here. Okay, so the Silverado has seen better days. If you want to know how it got like this, check out these videos. Anyway, we've got a flat tire. I think this one's flat too. Oh yeah, so let's get right to that. All right, well, there was a lot of creaking, groaning, and moaning in that rear end of the truck whenever the tires were airing up. Not too happy back there. Of course, I don't think I would be either if I ran into a tree 6 times or however many times it was. All right, I've been in here a little bit, messing with some stuff, as you can tell. I'm gonna use the Camaro to jumpstart this thing, which is kind of fitting because it is what's going to get this engine. So let's get cracking. Speaking of cracking, the dreaded 4th gen dashboard has cracked finally on my RS. Not too thrilled about it. Such is life of a 4th generation F-body. Alright, gonna put the black on the red and the red on the black. I'm kidding. Alright, we've got power. I hear stuff clicking. Guess it'd help if I go get the key. Did I leave it in it? Nope. Not that smart. Okay, got the key. Let's turn the key here and we'll get the fuel pump primed a couple times. Here goes nothing. And that's exactly what we got. Come on now. I saw sparks. I know you're getting juice. Yeah, I'm getting sparks. Try it again. There we go. Oh, you know what? I need to put the serpentine belt on it. Should have thought of this to begin with. I need the alternator to run the engine because this battery's deader than a doornail. That's why I'm jumping it. All right, here we go. Second time's the charm. Contact. Come on. Come on. I don't have the mass airflow sensor hooked up or anything, so maybe that's part of it. Well, it's not liking this one bit. Excuse me, guys. Okay, I put the snorkel back on this thing. Alrighty then. Take my seat cover off. How much gas do I have in this thing? Oh, a quarter of a tank. There's 50 bucks. That rear tire hitting the fender. Oh, pipe down. Surprised I still have brakes. Well, this is one last look at it while it's running. Let's check that dashboard real quick. 253,069 miles. Still getting good oil pressure. It's actually better oil pressure than my Sierra. It's usually under 40. RIP Silverado. All right, this is it. The next time this engine's running, it's going to be sitting in between those fenders. All right, so I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to start this process. Am I going to leave the transmission still attached? Because that's transmission and transfer case, that's pretty heavy. I think I would like to remove the transmission from the back of the engine. In any event, I think I'm going to pull the grille and the headlights, turn signals and stuff, pull that out, save those. Those are probably good for somebody. Somebody might want to buy that. There is the issue with the air conditioning, which I do believe there was a leak, so there's no charge in this thing. There's no pressure. There's one way I can check. There's a Schrader valve somewhere. I can push on it and see if anything comes out. We'll have to disconnect fuel, so there's flammable liquid that's deadly. I think I'm going to go ahead and pull the grill off while I'm thinking about this and get a plan of action. So when we go to working on this thing, you're going to see me use my dynamic tools. I'm really in love with these tools. They're laser etched, very easy to read what size socket you're going for. The ratchet's probably my favorite part. It's a very smooth ratchet. I have bought a big name from a box store and I replaced it twice because the ratchet kept locking up on me. It wouldn't work. This thing has so far worked flawlessly for me. If you're interested in picking up a tool set like this, check out this link right here. Use Daninator 15, you can get 15% off every time you order. It's not a one-time thing. Anytime you go back to shop.dynamictools.com and use Daninator 15, you get 15% off. That's fantastic. So whatever you purchase there and you use that Daninator 15 code, a portion of that actually comes back to the channel. So we'd greatly appreciate it if you pick something up, use that code. And again, thanks to Dynamic Tools for their sponsorship. So I've got some big 18mm bolts that hold this bumper into place. I'm going to be using my Bauer brushless 1/2-inch impact. You can see I've been using it quite a bit and kind of beat up on it a little bit. So far, this thing has loosened every bolt that I've tried to loosen. Rusty, but it came out. Okay, I'm about to remove this condenser off the front, but I want to make sure there's no charge in it. I'm going to pull this cap off the Schrader valve. Pretty sure it's empty because I don't think the air conditioning worked. Yeah, there's no hissing, so it's evacuated naturally. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and drain the radiator. The petcock is right here, and this is the hose that is connected to the side of the radiator right here. Anyway, you pull that out, point that down to the ground. I've got a bucket down there that's going to catch it. Open that valve right there, and then we'll start draining. We'll catch it in my gum bucket. Oop, missing the bucket. There we go. If that don't make you have to pee, I don't know what does. Yeah, that made me have to take a potty break. No cap, as the kids say. So while the truck continues to pee, I'll go ahead and take the air stuff out. Then I'm gonna probably go after all these radiator hoses and get those off. I love having my toolbox like right behind me. Grab everything I need, just lickety split. That means fast for all you youngins. It's like we've had mice get in there and chew the underside of my air filter. Faux show. Take the serpentine belt off. Save that belt. Keep that in the Sierra in case I have an emergency. All right, if you have a vehicle like a Trailblazer or the Silverado here that has a clutch fan connected to the water pump pulley, you have got to get a clutch fan tool remover. I don't know why I didn't buy that sooner. It was like 89 bucks on Amazon. Well worth the money. Super easy to remove that fan clutch. Allow me to demonstrate. For my particular application, I'm going to use this lever, and I'm going to use the 36 millimeter wrench to hold the nut. Hold that still, and then I'm going to use this to hold the pulley still. If you look closely, get the fan out of the way, there's actually holes in this pulley. So that's where this tool comes in handy. You can put these little pins into the wrench, screw that thing in there like that. Putting those two pins in, I'll hold that pulley still, and I'll be able to use that wrench and break that nut loose. Hopefully, it looks kind of rusted. So we're going to slide one pin into that hole, slide that pin into that hole. Now I have a hold of the pulley. I'll swing that around this way. I'll hold that on that frame right there. Hold this still. There we go. And I can just spin the pulley and hold that wrench, and this thing will come right off as such. Love this tool. Okay, I'm going to take these cooler lines for the transmission out of the radiator. There's just little metal clips that are holding this in. Pick those out, and then I gotta take the lower radiator hose off for the thermostat. I got these radiator hoses I gotta pull out for the heater core. Probably gonna end up making a mess here in a minute. I believe that's everything disconnected from the radiator. Get that lower shroud out of here. Got two bolts to remove up here that hold the radiator in place, and then we'll get this radiator out. So I was looking at this upper radiator bracket, and there are a couple of bolts underneath here. I think if you unscrew those bolts, I think that comes out. Thank you, GM. Go ahead and yank this battery out of here. Not that it was doing any good anyway. It's deader than a door now. Maybe I'll take all the accessories off the front of this engine. Probably don't have to, but So I disconnected the other hose from this fitting right there. So the cooler for the power steering fluid is ready to come off. So I took the 15mm bolt out of this air conditioner piece. I think I'll go ahead and take that AC compressor off. Certainly don't have to, but I'd like to be able to see a little bit better. So this is the bolt that GM gave me to work with. I've got the socket on there. This is a short socket. That's how much space between this arm for whatever's underneath there and the bolt have. Are you kidding me? Thank you, GM. Okay, we've got a huge victory right here. I've got my Dynamic Tools stubby flex head wrenches. I've got the 15 on there right now, as you can see. So I took another wrench that I have and I put it in the opening of the opened end. And I use this nut and bolt right here as leverage. So I ratchet it back, press against the bolt. There we go. It ain't pretty, but it's science for the win. And this is my last bolt, so whenever it comes out, it's probably going to come crashing down and pinch my hand and crush my fingers. But I can't speak highly enough of ratcheting wrenches. I've said it probably 100,000 times on my channel. I don't know how I went without these for so long. With this being a flex head, I'm able to kind of move the wrench over a little bit so I can get my fat hand in here, and I'm still able to work the ratchet. Fantastic. Again, flex head, ratcheting wrenches from Dynamic Tools, your lifesaver. Shop dynamictools.com. Get yourself a set because you're going to need them. Okay, I think I'm at a point where I need to get underneath this thing, unhook the starter, and then start looking at the transmission to see if I can undo the bell housing bolts. But I gotta air up this tire real quick. I'm gonna put this thing on 4 jack stands, get it way up off the ground so I can have plenty of space under there. Let's go wrenching. Okay, so that wasn't sketch at all. Give it the push test. All right, seems pretty stable. One little pop. That couldn't be good. I think she's settled. All right, where was I? Oh yeah, I'm gonna try to figure out where this wire goes. These 2 wires go underneath here and feed back into there. I believe it goes to the starter. Oh, for the love of Pete, how did I get this thing off? Oh, thank goodness. That's about 35 minutes of my life I won't get back. But I finally won the battle. So the starter and all the electrical has been removed. That's a good starter, I'll hang on to it. Okay, so it looks like I've got some brackets to disconnect, and that wiring should all hopefully come this way. I'm not sure if the transmission wiring is in this or not. It could be a separate harness, I don't know. So all of my tools have held up quite nicely. Did have one casualty. I snapped my nylon bar. Oh well, it's only like $1 at Harbor Freight. Anyway, it was good while it lasted. Got my dollar's worth, that's for sure. Well, I think I'm gonna wrap it up for tonight. I got quite a bit off this thing. A lot of electrical is unplugged. Hopefully I'll have another couple of good days weather-wise to be able to get underneath this thing and start disconnecting stuff underneath. I think I also need either some bolts or some chain. I don't even think I have that yet to hoist this thing out of here. So I've got to figure that out. That's all I'm doing for tonight. So we'll catch up with you right after this fade to black. All right, well, we're back at it today, and I'm going to be underneath the truck, going after like the transmission stuff, seeing what I can disconnect down there. So I've spent most of my time here trying to get all these electrical connections unplugged, and this is the shift gear selector thingy, and I got this one unplugged, but this one would not come unplugged. As you can see, it's still plugged into the plastic housing that just literally broke off the case here. I've never had that happen before. Well, I think I've got everything unplugged electrically, so I'm just making sure I've got all my wiring looms disconnected from those nasty connectors that connect to the brackets and stuff. So now I think I'm ready to start unbolting it. First, I'm going to take this thing out here, get a wrench up in there, and undo the torque converter bolts. So let's keep on wrenching, boys. Okay, so I got my 5/16 hex socket thing on that torque converter bolt. I'm not sure exactly how many there are on here, maybe 4 or 5. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to get these out. All right, so I got all 3 of those torque converter bolts. I thought there was more than 3, but I looked at the manual and it only said 3, so they were a pain in the reverse gear, I can tell you that much. Those puppies were torqued pretty tight, but I'm gonna go ahead and drain the fluid out of the pan, and we're gonna go ahead and start loosening some bolts here and there and see if we can't get these bell housing bolts out. What's up, everybody? I'm back at this afternoon. I've got a couple hours of work I can do on this. I'm going to remove the transfer case, and I'll show you why. The output shaft for the drive shaft is right above the torsion bar bracket, whatever this thing is. I cannot lower this transmission to be able to reach the bolts at the top of the bell housing behind the engine because there's nowhere for this thing to lower. So I went through my manual, going through the steps of transmission removal. It was saying you'll need to remove the transfer case. They say you don't have to, but it's advisable. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, I'm not sure how I'm going to do this without removing it. So that's what I'm gonna do. So according to my manual, there are just these 15mm nuts that I need to take off of the transmission. So it looks like there's 6 of them, I guess. So they're 15mm, so I'm gonna go ahead and try to pull those off. So I need to drain the fluid out of here. It's an 18mm bolt. Woo-wee. Did not mean to spill it. So this is a perfect opportunity for me to use my super clean floor absorbent. Virtually dust free, easy to pour, equivalent up to 15 pounds of clay. Get this on the patio before my wife gets mad at me. Pretty good stuff. Spread the wealth. So I've got the bolts out of this cross member in the middle. It's holding the transmission bracket, but there are 2 18mm bolts on each side. I think I'm gonna go ahead and remove this bracket. I've got the transmission supported by my floor jack. Okay, only because it's always something. This bracket got damaged. I hit something, I don't know. But I can't get a socket on that bolt because all this is in the way. So I'm having a tough time getting this last bolt out. It is always stinking something. Well, I guess with there only being one bolt left in it, I can easily swivel this out of the way. Sure. Why not? So I've got two more bolts to take out, one directly beneath and one directly above. But in order to reach this one, I'm going to take this bracket off. Surprisingly, these aren't torqued very tight. Okay, I'm going to attempt to lower the jack and see what that does now that I have that cross brace off. There we go. Oops. Just cracked open the transfer case. I didn't really want to do that. Where's my bucket? Hello? Oh, it was right here the whole time. Really trying to avoid this. It just calls for some more floor absorbent. So what I'm going to do is get my other floor jack to support the transfer case. I really don't want to drop it on my face. Best case scenario, not dropping it on my face. Well, let's see if I can get that top nut off of the transfer case. I can't see squat. Well, I feel it. It's right there. I know what I need. Need my dynamic tools, stubby, flexible ratcheting wrenches. Aha. With that flex head, I'm able to get more of a spin on this wrench. This thing is a lifesaver. The transfer case is ready to come off. How am I going to do that without it crashing down on everything and again landing on my face? Well, that's exactly what I didn't want to happen, but no harm, no foul. Now I can lower the transmission and be able to get extensions and stuff in there and get those top bolts out of the transmissions. All right, we're gonna go after these bell housing bolts. They're 15 millimeter. So there are two bolts that go in right there. They look like this. The bottom one I was able to get out with an impact. The top one I just had to use a normal deep well with my 3/8 ratchet, so that came out fine. I did use a box end wrench and stuck it on the end of the ratchet and kind of use that as some leverage, and once it popped it just came out with my fingers. Now I got to get the two on the other side. So the transmission cooler lines are in the way with this one. I gotta pop these cooler lines off, for Pete's sake. It's always stinking something. Okay, I finally got the two cooler lines disconnected from the transmission. Getting those little clips out of those things are a pain in the buns. I've got the two bolts right there are out. The bottom bolt was a 15 millimeter. The top bolt was a 15 millimeter, but it also had a 13 millimeter nut on it that was holding the dipstick for the transmission. So I had to get the dipstick out of the way and then go after the 15 millimeter. And I just used my 3/8 inch wrench with a 15 millimeter socket and several extensions to be able to access those, and that came off by hand. I've got more and they're on top. I got to locate those now and I can't see nothing. Again, the ratcheting wrenches come to the rescue. I'm able to reach the topmost bolt for the transmission bell housing from right here, and I'm spinning it off with my fingers. There we go. Dropping the transmission down is definitely helpful. Feel it around, see if I can feel another one. That was one. There's supposed to be two more. I think there's one actually missing on the passenger side. This driver's side has got all kinds of lines, brake lines, hoses, vacuum lines, all kinds of stuff in the way. Seriously doubt I'm going to be able to get my hand down in there with the wrench. Oh, well, I think I just found something to unplug. Yep, still connected to the wiring. Come on, arm. Go gadget arm. Okay, I think my last bolt is right there. Let's just see what we can do here. Okay. The socket is on the bolt. I'm going to use my impact driver. Yes. Yeah, buddy. Now I think we attempt to back the transmission off of the engine. Let's try it. So, well, that's how you don't take a transmission and a transfer case out of a Silverado. If I had the transmission jack, that would have kept me from like basically dropping it. Only thing I'm really wanting is the engine out of this thing, so I really didn't care that I dropped them. Sure would have liked to have avoided that, just on the off chance I'd want to keep this stuff. It's a fully functioning transmission. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Transfer case worked too, so maybe I will hang on to them, maybe try to sell them or do something, I don't know. And it's finally good to reach that step of the process where we pull the motor. Okay, so I've come to the realization that I forgot to reduce the fuel pressure in my haste to get this engine out. I skipped that step. So the fuel lines should still be under several PSI worth of pressure, and that's not a good thing because I've got to disconnect the lines. I don't want to get fuel sprayed all in my face. There is a Schrader valve on the fuel system. This is so you can put a gauge on it if you're doing diagnostic work to see what your fuel pressure is. I think I'm just going to push this in and try to catch it using a funnel. Try to reduce the amount of spray that's going to be going everywhere. Well, here goes nothing. Okay, well, maybe I have a fuel pressure regulator or something that's not working real well because there wasn't a whole lot of pressure. So I'm going to go ahead and try to disconnect these two fuel lines, the supply and the return line. Looking at my manual and looking at the engine, trying to see where I can put a bolt through something and run the chain through it. The manual says you would have to connect it to like an exhaust manifold bolt, which that's interesting. I've also seen where guys will hook it to one end of an exhaust bolt or something over here and then hook it to where this EGR would connect into this. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this EGR. And then I'll just use one of these bolts with a washer or something. Put the chain through that. Use that as a lift point. Maybe, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, at the very least, I got to go get a chain. All right, well, we're back at this today. The weather has dropped off a lot colder than it's been, so that's no fun. But I'm finally able to get back to doing this. I think every one of you can probably understand how life happens. So here we are, got the engine hoist. I need to figure out how I'm gonna connect the chain to the engine itself and get it connected to the engine hoist. I was looking through the shop manual that I have for this truck. It shows that you connect the chain to the exhaust manifold bolts. So I guess we'll start there and see what happens. So if you know anything about exhaust manifold bolts, they can break off with ease. I've got my 10mm on the bolt, and I'm using my breaker bar and very slowly loosen, tighten, loosen, tighten. I've had some success taking bolts out like that instead of just really bearing down on it and trying to loosen it and just putting all my force into that. I find that if you just kind of go little by little back and forth, it behaves a little bit better and you can get the bolt out eventually. So that's loosened up quite nicely, so we should be able to get this out without breaking anything. And I also put some PB Blaster on it. Thought maybe that might help. I've got all the bolts loosened, actually all the ones in the center. The furthest most bolt on either side cracked and broke off apparently. I think that's a common LS motor issue. It usually cracks one. I know my Sierra's got one missing. Tested all these bolts over here. They're all coming out just fine. Nothing's seized. I've got plenty of room. I got all kinds of time today. I'm just gonna go ahead and remove the exhaust manifolds. I could not get this oil dipstick tube to come out, So put a little PB blaster down where the O-ring is, where it goes into the oil pan, and let that set for a couple of minutes. And then finally give it a nice tug, and it came out. There's nothing that secures it inside the oil pan. It's just an O-ring. And it would not come off. I thought maybe it was bolted in, and it's not. PB blaster did the trick. Popped right out. Okay, with that oil dipstick tube out of the way, get the exhaust manifold out. I couldn't get these bolts loose. They were pretty fused on there. So I went after the one that goes into the intake, just a 10mm bolt on that right there, and I just pulled this right out. I've got the chains hooked up to the exhaust manifold bolts, just like the manual shows, except they still have the headers on. I don't know. I don't think that I'm totally thrilled with how this is hooked to the engine. It just doesn't seem like very strong bolts. I don't know, I just have my doubts about it. But I'll just start lifting and we'll just see how this goes. Well, it's lifting it. I don't like that. What was that? I believe that was chain settling. Okay, I think it's clear of the engine mounts. Let's try pulling this puppy this way. Okay, the oil pan is rather deep, so I'm gonna have to lift this thing higher. Okay, the oil pan is hitting the subframe. The oil pan's down there. I don't have a whole lot more room left up here. Interesting. Well, we're getting our first big leak. That's what I was expecting. Where's my buckets? Of course, I'm using them all. No, I'm not. Okay, I've cleared the oil pan. Big milestone. Okay, I do see a couple of like grounds or something on the back that's connected to the main wiring harness there, so I'll need to undo those. That's what's causing the engine to turn right now. There are some lines still connected back there. What is that, vacuum line? No, that is somehow fuel line. One electrical connector I forgot. Alright, one last ground wire. It's holding me up on the very back of this thing. I have no idea what size it is. Got the kiddos out here with me. They're witnessing the engine finally being removed. Exciting times. Yeah, it's pretty heavy. Still got to come up some more. Sure am thankful for this engine hoist.
No kidding. I'm really cold.
It is chilly out here. Well, there's the power plant for the Camaro. There it is in all of its glory. It's beautiful, clock. all year long. All right, we're just gonna let that sit there for right now until I figure out what I'm gonna do with it. Sweet. All right, so I forgot to hit the record button, but Aaron and I just pushed it the last 25 feet or so into its temporary permanent resting spot until we're able to get the trailer up here, load this thing up and haul it off. Thank you, son. Okay, so tonight in the garage, I'm going to try to put my engine on the engine stand. So I went to the hardware store today and bought some bolts. I took the bolts that I had from the engine stand and I bought some replacement ones for this. These are 8.8, which is not the strongest bolt out there. I'm sure it would be adequate in holding this engine to the engine stand. Probably no reason to buy harder bolts, but I did. Just something about Harbor Freight bolts holding my engine to the engine stand. I just kind of didn't feel too comfortable about it. So I went ahead and bought some hardened bolts. These are 10.9. So we're going to run with these to hold these arms to the plate. This engine stand did not come with bolts to hold the engine to the arm. So I had to do a little measuring to determine what length of bolt I needed to fit into the bell housing bolt area to this. So I'll show you what I did. Okay, so what I did was I found the bolt that went in the bell housing. I believe these are 10 millimeters in width. I just ran the bolt into the hole and then like right there it stops. So I put a piece of tape on the bolt and that gave me how deep the bolt goes into the block. So I measured that distance and however many millimeters that was, I added this distance. So basically I need that much bolt to stick out. So from here to here, that's how long my bolt needs to be. And obviously the hardware store is probably not going to have the exact length of bolt that this comes to. So there's a way around that. So what I ended up doing was buying a couple of washers. So then that way I have a little bit of space there to space this out properly. Boom, I've got the right length needed for this bolt to hold the arm to the engine. Now the other spot is going to be down here and I did the same thing. The distance into the block is more shallow than this one was up here. I had to buy a different length of a bolt. Plus I bought washers for this one, but you can see that I needed a shorter bolt. So the bolt length depends on which hole you're going to be bolting to. All right, so this is what I ended up with. I believe these are 190 millimeters, 180 millimeters. These were 10 mil in width. But anyway, I'm reusing the washers that came with the engine stand. You're probably saying you didn't have to buy those hardened steel bolts. Those bolts that came with the stand are perfectly reasonable and will do the job. Oh well, it's my engine. I guess I can do what I want. Take this flex plate off. We're not going to need it where we're going. All right, so moment of truth. Let's see how well my pre-planning did. Is this going to fit? Yeah, that's pretty good. I think that'll work. So what I'm going to be doing is using this bolt hole right here. I believe this is where that ground strap was. Yeah. But it's the same thread size and it's the same depth as the bell housing bolts. Okay, and then I'm going to be using the lower bolt where that bell housing is below this alignment peg. I might need an extra washer. Yeah, that kind of stopped a little short. I think an extra little washer is probably going to be in order for this one. Yeah. There's just a little bit of play in that one. I guess 2 washers are in order. Okay, so I bought this thicker and thinner one. I went into my tool chest and I found a much thicker one. So I want to run these 2 thick ones and get rid of this thin one. That should give us the space we need. Yep, that'll do it. So my thought is to bolt the plate to the arms, lift the engine up and roll the engine stand underneath it and bring the engine stand to this backing plate in post and try to line it up. I think that'd be the easiest way to do this. I don't know why this is so nerve-wracking to me. All right, no more engine hoist. Only engine stand. These exhaust manifold bolts held just fine. I was pretty nervous about it. These 4 bolts held up that engine with that chain. Surely if those 4 bolts can hold the entire engine, then these bolts I just bought will hold it to the engine stand. Well, if I hear a crash in the middle of the night, I'll know what it is. Well, this is going to be fun. It's also going to be a very big learning opportunity for me. I've never put an engine on an engine stand before and disassembled one. I've replaced a motor in a vehicle, but I did not tear anything down. I just basically swapped it from one vehicle to another. So this is my first foray into disassembling an engine. So I am really looking forward to this. The next thing we're going to do basically is tear into this and see what the condition of the engine is. And I've never had any major problems with this. I know the intake gaskets were bad on this because the car idled really poorly in the cold weather. I had a fuel rail over here that was replaced. Other than that, I changed an alternator. That's pretty much it. I never changed a water pump. It had a leak in the back, and I can see in the front we've got some, looks like oily residue. I think the valve cover gaskets were probably leaking. So, I mean, the engine does have 250,000 miles on it. A couple of hard miles there at the end whenever I was hooning around with it. But I suspect that this engine will probably be in pretty decent shape. My plan is to put a kind of a beefier cam in this thing. I want a little chop whenever this thing's running in the Camaro. I don't know if I'm going to do anything with the heads, maybe some stiffer springs. I don't know what the cam's going to call for. If you have any suggestions as to what I should do to this motor, within reason, I want this to be a daily driver. So I want to have fun getting to work, if you know what I mean. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know when I post new content, as we have more ZRS content coming soon. As always, thanks for watching. God bless. Be sure to hit that like switch on your way out, and we'll see you next time.